Well, welcome First Community. This is Craig Maynard, Senior Mentor for the FRC West, and I'm with Max Koloprak, my co-senior mentor. You there, Max?
I am here.
All right. Now, I'm just hoping that the stream quality, we're a bit low in bandwidth right now. I hope that doesn't affect the sound too much, but I guess we're going to find out soon enough. Today's our third streamcast. Our first one was just a test. Second one, we gave you a very insightful discussion of strategies and how to strategize for the FRC. That was the part one talk. And today we're going to do a little talk called Surfing the Season. We're going to talk about a typical FRC season and what a team expects to do all year round. Because, I mean, the build season may be the most jam-packed, eventful period of a build season, but at First Robotics, especially with FRC, it's a year-round activity. There's stuff to do in the summer, spring, fall, winter, you name it. There's always enough stuff to keep you busy. So I've got a little presentation we're going to go through called FRC Season Planning. And so this is planning your FRC season. I'd like how to nurture your passions for science and technology. And this is presented by me today. My name's Craig Maynard, and I've been involved in FIRST since about 1996 or so. I'm one of the founding members, along with Max, of FRC West, and I'm a FIRST senior mentor, as you know. I was also a mentor for a number of teams, but my highlight was mentoring 4334 all the way to the Einstein field. It was probably a highlight in my life. And I teach robotics and automation at SAIT for a little while now. So we want to talk about team planning. So in order to do that, you got to start thinking about how you're going to fashion your team itself. You know, it's one thing to have a yearly plan put in place, but you have to have all the elements, the kings, the queens, the pawns, the bishops, all the pieces of your team together before you start planning your season. So the first thing you got to do is find yourself, if you want to have a great team, you got to get yourself a few engineers and technologists on board. These are the people who are going to help you with all the technical details of your robot. I mean, it's fun to learn this stuff if you can, but it's way better to have a professional engineer or a technologist or an expert who can help guide you through those rocky patches as you go through your technical challenges. So hopefully you've located one or two engineering techs. That's a great start for your team. Second thing you got to have is a bunch of adults, at least 2 or 3 adults. And these guys should be handling all the administratia that the most of the team doesn't have time to handle. They should take care of things like the organization. They'll take care of communication with FIRST, making sure that all your updates and information is current. Keep things organized. They should work with registration, your fundraising, shipping, travel arrangements. This is where it's really great to have a few responsible adults. Or even just bringing food, you know, bringing the pizzas to the meetings and things like that. So, you know, you need to have adults involved in those kind of things. And eventually, as your team grows, you might need to get them involved with helping you with community outreach, bookkeeping, animation, special projects, all those kind of things. So, of course, you got to have a couple adults. And I know this isn't about the season itself, but if you haven't got these things in place, there's no point even starting the season. This is the big part. You got to have the high school age students coming in, and not just 5 or 6. You should get as many as you possibly can. 10 to 25 high school age students would be great. The more students you have, the more things you can participate in, because it's, as they say, it's not just building the robot. It's everything from designing the website to do the marketing, the fundraising, all the different scholarships you can get. It's a very, very rich team experience, and having 25 people on your team would be a blessing, you know, just to keep things rolling and give you continuity too. So let's say that you've gone ahead and you've put together your team and you're ready for the first season. Who do you have? Who's going to be helping you? What are you going to get to help you along with your team? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the lead mentors and what their responsibilities are, or lead or coaches or whatever you want to call them. Okay, first thing they got to do is they got to help you recruit your sponsors. Lead mentors have to help you fundraise. They got to help you apply for grants. There's a lot of FIRST Robotics grants out there, from rookie grants to all kind of special interest grants you can get from both US and Canada. And you got to make sure that there are enough funds to participate, because it is a rather expensive process. And if it gets to be too expensive, I mean, there's also other options in first tech challenge, things like that. So the mentors are going to help you recruit sponsors. The mentors are going to help you secure a meeting space. You got to have some place that you want to build, program, test, and you got to store your robot between your meetings as well. So they help you with securing a meeting location. Super important. They'll help you obtain all the materials you need to get things set up. You know, your hand tools, your power tools, access to all the machine tools and things you need. So getting together a good kit of parts in a workshop, very important. Mentors can help you with that. And the most important thing is the mentors also help you keep things safe. You got to make sure that all the team members have a strict safety policy and standards. You're working with power. You're working with a lot of current. You're working with a lot of heat when you're generating. If you're doing a welding or mechanical parts, there's all kinds of hazards involved. So you got to make sure that all members adhere to very strict safety policies. And this is wonderful for an adult to be responsible for this, or to have a safety lead in your team. Okay, every team, you guys have to make sure that you guys have all the appropriate liability waivers and everything you need to get the to make sure that everybody's safe and everybody's covered, because accidents do happen. Every team has to make sure that all the adults are also all set up in their youth protection plan. So your YPP certification for all the adults should be in place as well. Police checks for the safety of all the kids. That's something else that the mentors and adults should make sure that you guys have. Okay, so you've got yourself a team. You've got some adults who are helping you through with the organization, safety, and all the administration that you guys need. Let's talk just a little bit about team structure. So your team itself is, you know, depending how large it is, you're going to want to break down structures into smaller groups. Your team might want to consider having a small leadership council, and the leadership council might be some key mentors and students, and they sort of take the lead in the direction this team's going to take and handle important decisions that have to be made all through the season. So leadership council, that's probably a very useful group for you to have. Another group you might like to have within your team is the machine core team. Now these guys would be various mentors of sub-teams and all kinds of stuff. And these are the ones who are actually going to make decisions about the robot's design and help it move forward. They're not the ones who necessarily build it, but they're going to be the ones who decide if the robot is going to do strategy A or strategy B, or how far you're going to get, or these sort of details. So the machine core team will kind of keep you guys, give you a realistic direction for your robot to actually move in. You can also have sub-teams. So your group now may also be broken down into the mechanical teams, the control system teams, maybe a team for animations and YouTube videos. You might have a graphics team for setting up your logos and your image, your brand, a web design team, and other teams is required. So, you know, you got to make sure that you have enough people so you can service all of these different areas in FIRST Robotics. Okay, so we're going to build season. You're going to jump ahead to build season. We're going to have to get to our preseason here. All right, I'm going to take the slideshow in the order that I managed to tie it together in. Let's go to the build season. Okay, we're gonna skip over the preseason, and we're going to get to that a little bit later on. The build season. Now, we've assumed the game's been announced now. You've come to the kickoff, perhaps the one at SATE, and you now have a great idea what the contest is all about. You've read the rules a dozen times. You've been to the webcast. Maybe you've participated in the quick build. SATE's going to have a quick build for you for the rookie teams to help you get a rolling program chassis right off the bat. You might want to watch the Robot in 3 Days. There's a couple of them in Calgary. SATE's having a Robot in 3 Days where we build a first robot based on this year's challenge at SATE using professionals there. Tesla's also going to have one as well. They're going to have one at the university. So watch these guys. They're going to try to put something together in 3 days, and you can learn from their mistakes. Okay, so the build season has started, and now you're into week 1. What's the first thing you're going to do? Well, the first thing you want to do in week one is this is your formulation stage, your strategizing stage. This is where the idea of what your robot's going to do and the things you're going to try to challenge your robot to do are going to be decided upon. And you can use that framework that Max talked to you about last week. You got to define a team strategy. You got to think about the three parts of the robot competition: the autonomous mode, the teleoperated mode, and the end game. Each one is very important, and each one gets you a good series of points. You shouldn't leave any one of those three elements out, but they are kind of standalone in some respects. Next, you got to define the attributes of your machine, the size you want the machine to be, how fast it is. Or is it going to be a competitive machine? Is it going to be offensive, defensive? Is it going to go for the long game, or is it going to be a single-purpose machine that does just one element really well? So you have to define the attributes, and there's this whole strategies for being able to figure out what you want your robot to actually do. Right? You got to figure out some kind of a practice strategy. So as your robot gets built, you're going to have to find a place that you can practice, when you're going to practice, how long you're going to practice for, and that should be all set up ahead of time, so you know exactly what your strategy is going to be for practice. You're going to start thinking about the game elements. Now, every year there's a different field, and every field has elements in it that have to be built if you want to use them. Towers, barricades, obstacles, all these things. And if you want your robot to really compete well, you better have these things on hand and ready. So very often you have to come across these game elements, and that usually means going down to a hardware store and buying the wood and nails, getting the plans from first, and cobbling together a prototype. Now, you might not get all the game elements in your club specifically. You might want to partner up with a couple clubs, and you do some game elements, they do other game elements, and you kind of work together like that. But you're going to have some of these game elements in order to get your robot to function correctly. You can also start playing with prototypes. If your robot has a ball thrower, for instance, you have to throw perhaps a tennis ball through a small target. Start playing around with single-purpose tennis ball throwing mechanisms that not attached to the robot, that work standalone. Have a motor on them tied to a battery, and then see if you can get some ideas of different ways that these different tasks can be done. FIRST has been around long enough that almost every kind of a sport piece, like a football or a tennis ball or frisbee or whatever, has been used. So it's a great idea to go back and research the best of the robots from the past that are using the same kind of game elements that you might be using, and try to prototype some of those guys. You might start thinking about testing your control systems. Okay, now at this point, your Robo-Rio and the motor controls, the wiring, the power supplies, and everything can be set up on a breadboard. And at that point, you can power them up. You can download your code. You can set the system up and make it ready to go. Try it out. Try out some simple programs. So you can start coding a basic, simple program on your system as well. Okay. So it's very important in the week one that you figure out what the scope and scale of your robot's going to be, what you want the robot to do. Don't even worry about how it's done at this point. Just worry about what you're going to do. So this is a good thing to spend in your first week of your build season. Any more suggestions, Max? What do you think?
We haven't had any come in yet.
Okay. Feel free to pipe in anytime you want. Okay, week 2 of the build season. Now this is where you're going to start to integrate your systems and bring everything together. You should basically have your main strategies and concepts of your robot done by now. It may change. There may be some minor adjustments downstream as you learn more about your limitations and the robot's limitations. But you should have your main concepts done now. This is a good time to look at what you've achieved and do a peer review of your robot design. See what all the elements of your team think about, all the members of your team think about the different robot elements, and make some decisions on whether you should proceed or stop on certain elements that you've done. You might want to develop some virtual models or simulations, perhaps start modeling some ideas in SolidWorks. All the parts for your robot, everything in the kit of parts is available as a part on Robot Studio, and you can bring them all together and snap them and have a 3D view of what your robot might look like. So this might be a good time to start looking at some of those virtual models and simulations to see what options are available to you. Keep working on your prototypes, keep testing them, refine them, make them more accurate, make them faster, make them more efficient and more robust. And then hopefully you can complete your design base, your actual bottom of the robot with the drive system and stuff. That might be done by now. Your control software should be loaded. Maybe some basic manipulators might be on your system. And keep working on field elements. I mean, the robot might not be ready to start using the field elements yet, but when the robot's ready, you want to have those in place. Coming to week 3 right now. Now here's the time you want to start fabricating and procuring components. So you got to design, hopefully your base is all built by now and your manipulator's all done, whatever your robot's going to be doing. If it's going to be hanging, needs an arm, needs a winch or something on board, those should be starting to come together now. If your robot's got a ball throwing or a frisbee throwing mechanism or some kind of a targeting device, that should be available for you to test out right now. This might be a good time to start thinking about buying some COTS parts. That's commercial off-the-shelf parts where you can move out to electronics companies and hardware stores and things like that and buy all those special functions that you need to have. Machine shops, automation stores, things like that. Keep testing your control system on the completed system. Start coding all your peripheral devices at this point. You might be coding in your manipulators and your ball shooters. And perhaps this might be a good time to start thinking about your autonomous code, what your robot's going to do during that first autonomous period of the game. Week 4. Now, you guys are just about halfway through the build season. Hard to believe it. This is going to go by really quickly. You should start thinking about assembling the robot and building a shipping crate. It takes a while to get one of these together. So while the robot's going together and you've got a pretty good idea how big it's going to be now, might be a good idea to go down to your carpentry shop in your school or Home Depot and see if you can get some material together to start building that old box. Keep working on the robot manipulators and all the end effectors and all the custom parts. Any custom parts you need to have manufactured. Week 4 might be a good time to make sure that they're manufactured. Get your control system involved and installed, and then continue testing. Keep working so you're still barreling through your build season. Week 5, hopefully you've got something rolling by now, something you can actually test. So hopefully you got your manipulator all on and your shooters are on, your spare parts are added, your robot looks like it's ready to go. This might be a good time to start practicing to making sure that everything's working well, the targeting's working well, the robot's got all the accuracy it needs. And now we're trying to develop the robot, polish it more carefully than it was before. Okay. By week 6, you should be focusing more on the game practice, right? So you're going to be actually putting the robot into the field, trying it out, seeing how many points it scores, seeing how well it competes if you have other robots to compete with. Start to design, modify your robot slightly. Don't do major changes at this point. You don't want to lose anything you've gained at this point. So you want to make sure any tweaks you do are minor tweaks and not major revisions. But you can do still more polishing on your robot. Verify the control software, confirm it's working well. And then start practicing with the robot. The drivers are one of the most important parts of your robot team, so you got to make sure that you practice and practice and practice with your drivers. Test that autonomous code, make sure the robot's running as well as possible, and with the things you learn through your practice, keep improving your machine. Make sure it's more durable, get your bumpers and your guarding put on place, and then get ready for bag and tag. Okay, there's your 6 weeks of the build season right now, and it goes by faster than you think. Now I'm going to go back in time, and I'm going to look at the preseason. Okay, preseason. This is going to be the foundations that you use that lead up to the build season itself. Let's start by looking at September. Now, September is a great time. You're just back to school. This is when you're going to start recruiting students through information sessions. You might have school lunches or club fairs, school announcements, any newsletters, any web pages. You want to start building up that that winning team. You know, get as many people as you can interested in what you're doing, because there's a lot of talent out there and there's a lot of work to be done. So get out there and start recruiting these students as much as possible. September is a great time for that. Come October, now it's time for the teams to actually begin registering into the TIMS system. So you're going to have to log into the team information management system. You have to register your team. You have to choose which kickoff you want to go to. You got to choose which competition or competitions you want to go to as well. So that should all be taken care of in October. Hopefully your team is largely formed by this time. Come November, it's time to hold strategy meetings. You might want to consider fundraising. You might want to consider training sessions on programming, building, design. Talk to Max or myself, and if you need any special if you have any special needs for your group, you know, technical needs or programming needs or mechanical design needs, SolidWorks, you name it, we'll set you up with somebody who can help you. And then you just got to get ready, because build season's around the corner. So you just start planning for the upcoming season. All right, December is coming. Now you got to keep planning your sessions. You got to focus on the roles of the individuals now, because crunch time is coming. So you should have decided who your drivers are now, who the builders are going to be, who's going to be your marketing people, who's going to work on the finances and all those elements. All your individual members of your team should be in place by now. If you have to travel to kick off or the quick build, if you're away from the nearest one, the one in Calgary, for instance, this is probably a good time to consider those arrangements as well. You might have to book a hotel, might have to arrange for vehicles to get you there and back again. So that would be December, and that would lead us up to the kickoff. Okay, so now you've got the first half of the season. Let's have a look at the nuts and bolts required in getting started with your robot team. Now this should go back at the beginning of the slide, but you should have these elements: a meeting place, and that meeting place should have elements like a machine shop, a room for storage, a room to practice driving, things like that. You should have the tools you need to have. They should be all set up, ready to go, because this is all required once the build season starts. It's essential that you have all these things in place. So make sure you've got your tools in place, any power tools, any machine tools, and make sure you have time. Okay, during this build season, you're going to have a minimum of several times a week that you want to meet, and at least 2 or 3 hours a meeting time. Okay, a senior team, mature teams that have been through this process for a number of years never stop meeting. They meet all year long. We will talk more about that later. All right, so let's skip over the build season because we already talked about that. Let's talk about the competition. Competition season has now come. That's April and May. The first part of the competition are the regionals. And of course, you better go to at least one, or there's not much point in building a robot. These regionals usually have 30 to 70 teams, depending on where they are. And so you're going to have to make sure that your team will be ready for a 3-day trip. Usually they start on Wednesdays. They go Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays, and you might return on a Saturday night. So as you get ready for your regionals, make sure that you're ready for a long week, right? Might be some time off school. Certainly might be some time off work for your coaches. So make sure they're ready for that. And of course, you're going to win your regional, or you're going to get the top rookie, or you're going to get something. So you're going to end up going to championships. I'm sure of that. If you go to championships, you're going to be in for an experience of a lifetime. Either whether you're going to Houston or Detroit, I believe Calgary goes to Houston. There will be thousands and thousands of team members from all different programs at first. And of course, the FRC, you're going to see the best teams in the world come in. There's all kinds of seminars and workshops. There's qualifying rounds. There's award ceremonies. There's all kinds of activities for you guys to do, and some incredible talent out there. So if you can get the championships, it's well worth it. But you got to keep in mind that after your regionals, you haven't got much time to get ready for championships if you proceed. Because championships is going to cost you another $6,000 or $7,000, plus you're going to have to get down there. You're going to have to fly down there with your robot, ship your robot down there, get all the people down there, get your hotel all booked in and everything else. So It takes a little bit of, well, it takes a little bit of planning to make sure you're ahead. So let's assume as you move forward that you will go to championships, and think about those things. Think about that plan. Don't assume regionals is going to be your last stop in this first adventure this year. We see a lot of people, Max and I, who are very surprised to find that they're going to Houston. All right, I didn't expect it. Somehow they make it. Okay, so now we've been through championships. You've been to Einstein Field. You've won the gold. You're all happy now. It's postseason. What are you going to do during postseason? Well, keep your momentum going. I mean, you guys are excited after your championships. People are pumped. They want to build robots now. They're so thrilled about it. But the competition's over. And what are you going to do? Well, don't stop. You got to keep building all the time. And there's all kinds of ways you can do that. Let's have a look at some of the things going on that you could be doing in May. In May, have a renewal. Get a party, get some ribs together, have a barbecue, determine what went well, what didn't work, what improvements can be made. Start chatting about the robots, but really celebrate what you guys have done. Celebrate the season. Maybe have some kind of a banquet. Recognize your sponsors. Bring your sponsors in and show them how much you appreciate it. Give them all kinds of presentations showing your journey and show them your robot. Let them try the robot out, right? And then make plans for what you're going to do during the off season. FRC West, we have all kinds of activities we end up going to, things like makers fairs and Beakerhead and schools and demonstrations, all kinds of demonstrations going on at the Science Center, for instance. Get involved in those and get ready to bring your robots. There's invitationals out there. There's all kinds of invitationals in postseason where competitors get together and they have another contest. They have another 3-on-3. Bring their robots and they'll just redo the event again informally and these invitational events. So maybe take in some of those. Make sure you recognize, in addition to your sponsors and those people who brought you the money, make sure you recognize all your mentors and your parents as well. These guys put a lot of work, a lot of time, sometimes a lot of money into getting you to this point. So recognize them too, and do it in May while it's fresh in your mind and you're still excited and your robot's still charged up, ready to go. May is a great time to really appreciate all the work that you've done and all the work that people have done to get you to that point. June and August, keep the momentum going. This is a great time to fundraise. Any off-season events we have, any invitationals, anything like that, try to get involved in them. Perform demonstrations on the robot at science fairs and things like that. SATE's got a number of summer camps. Universities got camps. There's all kinds of camps that you can visit, demonstrate your robot, and some camps are actually involved. SATE's this year is having a series of summer camps for FIRST Robotics at all different levels. So maybe get involved in those summer camps. Maybe volunteer, maybe take the camps. So June and August, keep it going then. And that brings us right back to September again. So that was a full season of firsts, and you can see this adventure just keeps going on and on and on. It's really a lot of fun, but there's always something to do. So that's kind of surfing the season. It was an abbreviated discussion, but it gives you some of the ideas of what you can do all through the first robotics season. So you have anything to add to that, Max?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay. All right. Well, listen. That's about all I have now about the season. There's about 1 million. There's if you go to the FRC, the First Inspires website, they've got all kinds of information on the manual about how you can organize your teams and work on a year-by-year, week-by-week, month-by-month basis too. So check out those resources. Go to Chief Delphi and check out the resources they have there about time management and things like that. Those are also great resources. Okay, so that's what we got right now for our little webcast. Next week, what are we doing next week?
It's October 30th, and we're doing Spooky SolidWorks.
Spooky SolidWorks for beginner. That's right. Okay, in recognition of Halloween, we're going to be doing Spooky SolidWorks for beginner. We're going to get you guys into a parametric solid modeling program, so you guys will have resources to be able to start developing a virtual robot. Right.
And I just want to say that SolidWorks is available to every FIRST team for free.
That's right. You can download it right now. And until you get the license, which is in your kit of parts, you can run SolidWorks on a 30-day free trial. So before next week's lesson, why don't you download SolidWorks and try some of the online tutorials up in the help menu. There's lots of online, and there's lots of YouTube help too on SolidWorks. Try some of those guys out, get some questions together, and then come back to us. We'll show you around SolidWorks and give you a kickstart. All right? So Max, if you got nothing else to say, I think we'll just close down this webcast and get ready for next week's.
Nothing else, and no questions have come up. I think you answered every question they had.
All right. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next time.